Welcome back to the Fanatics Media e-commerce program. Every week we are here with some of the best and brightest minds in e-commerce, and this week we have a real treat. You keep hearing about millennials and how millennials can't hold a job and they can't do anything and they're not creative and they just want everything. Well, our guest today is somebody who says to that, absolute nonsense. Will Tjernlund is a brilliant e-marketer and e-commerce expert. He's sold more than $8 million for himself and his company, and he sold tens of millions of dollars of products for other companies on Amazon, on eBay, and across different e-commerce sites. He knows what he's talking about, and if you look and you say, well, he's so young, how could he be doing so well? Well, it has nothing to do with young. It has to do with smart, and it has to do with approach. So first off, Will, thank you so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to getting the chance to talk to you.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I hope to provide a lot of value for your audience.
I think that you will. So you had a real interesting start to your Amazon and e-commerce career. In fact, you started before you even graduated college. How did that come about?
I was just really lucky that I had a brother who was into all sorts of entrepreneurial type stuff. So 2003, 2004, my brother started buying stuff from Alibaba and selling it on eBay. And so I was 13, 14 at the time, kind of started getting the bug then. And so even when I was in high school, I started selling stuff, doing retail arbitrage. And then through college, I started private labeling until I started working with my brother full time in the end of 2012, 2013-ish.
Now let's talk a little about private labeling, because we've had on other sellers here and we've had on e-commerce experts, and they say the private labeling, the beginning of the end is here. And I happen to be one of those people that disagrees with that. I think that private labeling is here to stay if done well and done differently. What I think is starting to go away is you buy 50 products of the same 50 products that 50 other people are selling. You pop your label on them and think that yours is going to do any better. What is your take on the future and the near future of private labeling and sales on e-commerce?
I think that private labeling is here to stay. I think there's still opportunities to private label if you can add some sort of value at all. For the most part, I've been shying away from private labeling. Just the whole model of having to order stuff from China, waiting 60 days for it to get to you, and manufacturing, and then tying up your cash, and then waiting another 60 days to 90 days for it to sell out. It's just a long time to tie up your cash, and for the risk to reward ratio, it's like I've been shying away from private labeling and trying to make money other ways than Amazon.
And so when you say you're shying away from private labeling, what avenues do you prefer?
I prefer signing up like U.S. brands for me to be their like official reseller and like their only authorized distributor on Amazon. Kind of buying their products from them at wholesale prices, selling it on Amazon, and that just works a lot better. Where with these U.S. companies, the lead times are a lot shorter. They accept a lot more different types of payments, and a lot of them have payment terms, and so there's just a lot more different ways to get creative with selling on Amazon.
Now, there are potentially millions of companies you could go after when you do this method. How do you decide who's got a good product that you think you can move a lot of? And how do you also determine whether or not you think they'll be a good partner for you to work with?
Well, it's pretty easy with Jungle Scout and software like that to kind of just see what is selling and what's not. And then from there, if I notice that they have you'll see it all the times where you'll see some product that sells $40,000 a month worth of inventory, and they'll have only 3 of the 5 bullet points filled out.
Right.
Or they'll have only 1 picture and it's bad. Or they'll have a title and it's just the brand name and the model number and that's it. And so it's pretty easy to contact a company as long as it's not like Sony or someone like that, or Apple, but like anyone in kind of the mid-sized business range, anyone under $100 million a year in revenue or less, and call them up and say, hey, your Amazon account's atrocious. This listing looks bad. This listing looks bad. I'm the person to help you. I'm the expert. I can handle this. You should start selling to me, and I can fix your Amazon account. And I basically become a free Amazon consultant for them, where not only do they not pay me, but I pay them, and I buy inventory from them. But then I take care of a whole entire kind of arm of their business where they just don't have to worry about Amazon at all. I take care of all their problems, and it kind of just a win-win situation for everyone.
And do you set that up mainly as an FBA situation? Or are you drop shipping that? How do you approach that to make the most bang for your buck?
So best case scenario is we get them on Vendor Central. and get them through our Vendor Central account, because then especially too, if they have longer payment terms, we can float the cash and just only order the stuff from the brand once Amazon's ordered it from us. Because like we have some suppliers with lead times of 2, 3, 4 days. And so if we can not have to spend our own money and only spend the money once Amazon's already bought it from us,
Right.
then it's just free cash. So it's like always trying to find different ways to get creative of moving our cash around and trying to like grow our business as fast as possible. And so that's why the private label approach, while you can actually sell a private label brand and it actually has like equity in it, where it'd be hard for us just to sell all of our relationships. It's at the same time, we're just kind of think of it as a gold rush, try to make as much cash as possible.
Well, it's really interesting because a lot of sellers say avoid Vendor Central, that if you're not the company itself, that there's just the margins are different on Vendor. And so it's interesting to hear a seller say, no, we want to be on Vendor. We want to take advantage of the prolonged, payouts and the system setup. Do you find that you potentially cost yourself money being on Vendor as opposed to seller, or the benefits in the long run turn out in your favor?
I think that the people who are scared of Vendor do a lot of like micromanaging, where if you have 2 SKUs and then you send it up to Vendor, yeah, it might not really make sense to your business model. But when you can sign up a brand and just add 5,000 SKUs to their catalog, send up pricing, if the Amazon doesn't want it, then they won't order it. If they do want it, they will order it. It's kind of a myth that Amazon like bullies you about pricing. You can just say, hey, I just won't accept that price anymore. They just won't order from you, but it's no harm, no foul. They got too much stuff going on. And so for us, we don't have to sit there and worry about doing kind of the goofy stuff of like keeping our rankings up, right, and making sure everything's completely perfectly optimized and making sure we're doing this and that. It's like as long as everything looks pretty decent, Amazon Vendor Central will take care of the rest, making sure we win the buy box, make sure we rank #1, and Amazon, the sales boost from it makes up for the margin lost.
Now, at what point is it you're talking about you only have 2 SKUs, you have a few SKUs, you're on seller. At what point do you want to consider swapping from seller to vendor?
Once it's just starting to get too competitive. If you notice that like slowly but surely, you're kind of losing your ranking for your main keyword and you're slowly getting kind of pushed out. If you start selling to Amazon, as long as all the rest of your competitors aren't selling to Amazon, you'll shoot to the top of the ranking #1 because Amazon always favors their own listings, it seems.
How do you approach, and as somebody who has experience on seller and has experience on vendor, how do you approach promotion in Amazon PPC differently to push your products?
So I'll do very little PPC on Vendor Central because it's like they kind of do the marketing
right.
push for you. You pay into like a marketing co-op, and so it's like not as needed. And the PPC on Seller Central, I usually only kind of really push it full force on super expensive products and kind of super niche down products where the PPC is going to be basically free. But if I'm sitting there with an ACOS above 20% or so, I just don't even go near it.
Right. And it's funny because we also represent a bunch of brands in what we do. And we had one recently where we got their ACOS down to about 5%, which we thought was, very, very good. And they said, well, that seems high to us. And we're like, that's a pretty good turnaround when you're making that kind of money. And so there seems to be sometimes when you are working on behalf of other companies, much like you do, where there's a misunderstanding. When you see misunderstandings on the companies you represent, how do you kind of explain to them what it is you do and why your way is working?
Well, we put into like a marketing budget into our contract, so then we can just spend the PPC and they don't worry about it. But for the most part, it's the misunderstandings will be kind of flare up in the very beginning, and we just won't work from them from there on out. And so usually we can tell within the first kind of couple like meetings and like us explaining our process if there's like too much resistance on their end, or they go, okay, yeah, that sounds good, but we'll see about that. Right. Then we can kind of just tell that like their company culture is not ready for us. They're kind of more in the old school mind frame, and if they're going to be slow movers to this, we're not the best people to work with because we know that there's a limited time to make as much money as possible on Amazon. And so if they're just going to want to take their time for the sake of taking their time, we just don't have time for that.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Because there is this question of, and Amazon's stock was actually down. We're recording this on the Friday before Halloween, and so Amazon stock just went down at the close of business yesterday. Although you and as viewers at home are watching this shortly after Halloween. When we look at what Amazon's doing, there is a concern and a question that the road for third-party sellers is kind of clogging up and dying, and that Amazon's going to switch, some of its models and may not be as beneficial to sellers. As somebody who's an elite seller, what do you see the future year, 2 year, 3 years for third-party sellers on Amazon being?
I think they're just going to kind of keep the same path they're going, where they're just going to make it harder and harder for third-party sellers. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something where it was like, say, $20,000 a month to sell on Seller Central as just a fee. Everyone gets like a concierge person then. But at the same time, too, anyone who can't pay the fee gets kicked off, and then Amazon gets to free up all this warehouse space. They don't need 10,000 garlic presses. They need 5. And so, it's kind of like any move Amazon's been making with like having to pay to ungate products and all that kind of stuff. It's always just been beneficial to me because I'm almost grandfathered into anything now. And 2, it's that we're always doing stuff the legit way. And so with all these different terms of service updates and all that kind of stuff, it's like we never did giveaways or anything like that. And so it's basically every time Amazon has an update, everyone freaks out, and it never pertains to me. Right. So I'm always for them. If Amazon makes it more and more professional, gives you more and more analytics, and makes it more and more expensive, I think that's more beneficial. If you're just looking to make an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month, then just hang out on eBay the rest of your life. Like there's no shame in that. Like there's plenty of money to be made on eBay and all that kind of stuff. But if like you're really trying to take this to the next level, you really should take this seriously. It's people come to me all the time saying, "Hey, I want to have an Amazon business. I got $2,000 to get started," and it's like no way you would ever try to start a restaurant with $2,000. Right. It's almost like disrespectful that you think that you can just like start with $2,000 real quick and have $1 million business in 2 months. Like, just do the math. How many times you get to flip your inventory? What percentage? And so, yeah, it's just interesting because I think they're going more towards professional sellers, and I think it's only a good thing.
Well, it's interesting because we've told people, yes, you can start a business with $2,000 if your goal is $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000, right? If your goal is a quick, hey, I start in December and by April I want to be doing $500,000, then no, you can't start with $2,000 unless you bought 2,000 lottery tickets and one of them hit, and then you started a business, and that becomes just a whole different animal altogether. We are talking to Will Tjernlund here on the Fanatics Media e-commerce TV show. Will is a brilliant young business mind who, right out of college with his brother, already started an Amazon business. They've sold $8 million of their own product and more than tens of millions of dollars on Amazon for other companies. Now, Will, you just mentioned, you want to make a couple grand a month. You can live on eBay. There's no shame in that. Talk to me a little bit about when you're off of Amazon, what other e-commerce platforms in addition to eBay do you like, and where do you see the external e-commerce market going with those platforms?
Don't get me wrong. I do not like eBay. I don't like any of the other sales platforms. They're all pain in the butt to deal with. I've tried Sears. I've tried Walmart. We did, in like 2014, we did like $1 million in sales on eBay and just quit after that. All the rest of them just aren't nearly as easy to deal with as Amazon. Amazon has all the eyeballs, and it's like you can add, say if you really wanted to, you could go and throw up all your SKUs on all the different marketplaces, Rakuten, Sears, Walmart, Target, and then get the inventory management software and get everything set up so it'd be perfect, and you'll increase your revenue by 10, maybe 15%. And in all that time, you could have just sourced 5 more SKUs and increased your sales by 10, 5, or 15%. So of all the third-party marketplaces, eBay is a good one for just people to get started. If they have $2,000, it's easy to flip your $2,000 and make some quick money. Besides that, Etsy is awesome. If you've ever sold on Etsy, all the customers could not be nicer. They have like practically no fees, and all the sellers are a bunch of like stay-at-home moms who don't understand how like keyword stuffing and SEO works. And so it's just very easy pickings.
Oh, it's funny. My brother-in-law does some T-shirt sales on Etsy, and he did it more as kind of a, hey, I have these cool T-shirts, I do vintage, and I'll just sell them, and he just threw them up there, and all of a sudden, within like 2 days, there were like 25 sales, and he'd go, oh my God, I got a business, I got to rethink this whole thing, and of course, you're right, it's a different mentality when you're on Etsy. It feels like you're dealing with your neighbor, whereas when you're on Amazon, and certainly some of the vendor listings specifically, feel like you're dealing with a company's online marketplace, just not on their site.
Yeah, if you ship something 2 days late on eBay, they're coming for your head. Where if you say email someone 2 weeks late on Etsy, they're saying, "Hey, I can't believe you emailed me. That's so nice of you. Like, if you'll send me any product at all, I'll give you a good review."
Right.
And so we were sitting there for a while just for fun. Had a VA taking all of these listings of just like kind of wooden trinkets on Amazon and just doubling the price and putting them on Etsy and drop shipping them. And so we were doing like $1,500 a day doing that. And so it's like, it's a stupid side hustle, but it works.
So I just want to repeat that. So you found stupid crap on Amazon. You
Like
doubled
welcome,
the price.
like a welcome home sign made out of
Right.
wicker, that kind of just junk.
Yep. And you never bought it.
No, well, we'd buy it once it was sold. Yeah.
Fascinating.
It's
now
drop shipping.
And you talked a little bit about that before. I read an interview you did where you said, I want to sell things I don't own, in essence, where I don't want to buy them until I've sold them, right? Talk to us about how that works and how far and how deep into the Amazon business do you have to be before you can really get into that model?
It's just me just looking for opportunities. And the whole thing is with it, you just have to have super short lead times. That's what it really, really basically comes down to. And so like with one of the brands we resell, since they have 2-3 day lead times, when Vendor Central places a purchase order, we get that purchase order, we turn around, order that from the company. We confirm the purchase order with Amazon 24 hours later, the product's already on its way, and then we get it in, resend it out. And so then the payment terms with one of our companies is 90 days. Amazon pays us in 60 days. We can scale to the moon because we're always getting paid before we have to pay our vendor.
So it's an excellent way to hack the system.
Well, it's just, again, like once you figure out how Amazon Marketplace works and you figure out that like selling stuff isn't that hard, kind of how the algorithm works, all that stuff is whatever. The whole game just becomes cash flow management. And so then you just sit there and brainstorm what are different ways I can move cash around to make my business bigger on Amazon. Because it's like, I know there's a million private label opportunities out there. I know there's a million brands out there that are misrepresented on Amazon. Right. So it's like that stuff can just be like automated and systemized. It's like, what can new business strategies, that's the kind of thinking outside the box, what's going to really take you to the next level.
When you talk about cash flow management, what do you suggest that new sellers should be doing, or what should their approach to cash flow be?
It's hard to say, but it's like, just always be doing the math. You just can't just be buying stuff willy-nilly where you go, okay, I have $10,000 liquid, and then you buy $6,000 in inventory. And you go, okay, now, do you have any idea how fast you're going to get that $6,000 back? Like, what percentage of the market share on that first page do you think you can take? And then how fast would you sell out the 6,000 units you bought? And then what would your profit margin be? And then for every dollar you invested, how much dollars did you get back and how long did that take? And so like, what's that velocity? And now every product you source after this, do you want to make sure it has a faster velocity than that one? Well, probably, and so it's like, I think a lot of people just don't do the actual math. They just go, okay, this seems like a decent product. I'm into dogs, so I source some dog leashes. And they just don't really think about it as like a business. And like I was kind of saying earlier, almost like disrespect it. Like it's like something we can just throw up whatever at any price point and any amount of money, and the rest of it will work itself out. And it's just obviously it's just not true.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. You mentioned earlier Jungle Scout. One of the things we ask all the people we talk to here on Fanatics e-commerce TV is, what are your favorite technologies that you use for e-commerce? Whether that is sourcing, or whether that is management, or whether it's cash flow management, the things that you can't live without, what apps and technologies do you turn to?
I love the Chrome extension of Jungle Scout.
Yeah. Constantly
just click it just to see. Why not? It's one of those things that just takes a second. It's like, it's constantly just, okay, what Jungle Scout say? So like, that's awesome. 2, when you have consulting clients and you can print it out in a bunch of CSVs and put it in a nice spreadsheet and make it look pretty, it really impresses people. So that's always a good sign. We use Google Docs constantly. Have everything in video form, all processes, all documents, everything is in Google Docs. So that's awesome. Other software we use a tax jar, obviously. We use Stitch Labs in conjunction with Xero for like accounting and inventory management. Um, I don't know tell me the problem. And there's probably a software we use for it, kind of thing. There's all sorts of stuff going on, but those are like the main ones we use.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of software out there, some which is very expensive, some which is not, and a lot of people selling their Amazon software now and selling their e-commerce software, and everybody's got a software, and sometimes it's tough to say, okay, well, this is good and worth the money versus, well, this is kind of crap. Now Jungle Scout still seems to be the gold standard, but there's a bunch of software teams coming out every week that we get pitched on, and we always ask our sellers, okay, well, what do you like? What do you think is real, what isn't? And a lot of people now talking about Helium 10 as a good software. We have some experience with it. We like it so far. It's from Manny Coates and his team. So a lot of stuff coming our way. When you built the business, everybody has fumbles. Everybody's got stumbles. What are the mistakes you made now that you look back and say they were great learning experiences? But if you were to teach somebody else, say avoid these mistakes.
One of the biggest mistakes me and my brother both made is just kind of like assuming we could do everything and just growing for the sake of growing, where then we look back and try to hire our first employee type of thing, and our SKUs are a mess. We have no real systems in place at all. We just knew exactly, like, you could just ask me where each shipment was. I could just tell you off the top of my head type of thing. But, like, well, that doesn't really help when you're trying to show transparency between other employees. And so it was just doing every single thing ourselves, having everything internal. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And, like, we just knew everything. So it just came second nature. But there was just so much to teach when we had to start hiring and training. And it was just such a miserable process that if we would have just kind of done everything a little bit slower the first time and just kind of like recorded what we were doing and like wrote out processes and organized them, life would have been a lot easier.
And how many people? How big is your company now?
So it's a goofy question because it's like I have a seller account between me and my one business partner. I have a seller account between my brother, me, and my business partner, and then I also have like a consulting firm where we are running other people's accounts. And so between like that and then the big account me and my brother created too on top of that, probably like 30, 40 employees.
Okay. Wow.
But it's between like 4 or 5 different companies type of thing. So some of those are virtual assistants. So it's not like it's like we have one nice office with 40 employees. It's like a lot different than that.
And if somebody wanted, a company was watching this and wanted to get in touch with you to manage their product, how would they do that?
Just email me. My name is williamtjernlund@gmail.com. Email me, pitch me your company, and tell me why we should carry your brand. We get lots of people contacting us all the time saying, hey, would you manage my brand? We do $3,000 a month. And so it's kind of thing where, we are very selective, say no to almost everyone. But if your brand is in kind of the right position and we think we can really add value, yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, so talk to us about what that looks like, right? You mentioned, okay, you did $3,000 a month and you're getting a lot of people approaching you. When you look at a product, how do you know, okay, that's one we can do something with and we're going to do bonkers with this product?
Well, some of them are just a slam dunk where you go and you see the brand and the brand's already, one of the brands we were talking to, they already did $3.2 million on Amazon, but they didn't have an Amazon account. It was just people retail arbitraging their stuff.
Oh, no.
So, like, something like that's a slam dunk. Because it's like, that's just going to be a lot of emails to Amazon. Like, first off, like, getting them their account signed up. Second off, like, making sure they get on all the listings, condensing all the listings because people are selling it under different UPCs, the same product, and then going through and optimizing the listings and then training their employees, giving them our, like, paperwork on how to ship the products to Amazon. Like, all that stuff is, like, that's just clockwork. We know exactly how to do every single step of the way. We have processes written out for it that we can train their people. Like, that's like the easiest thing of all time where like we know that whatever they pay us, they're going to make it back 100 times in that first year type of thing where it's like, that's a slam dunk. Like those are the kind of ones that like keep me up at night where like I need to work with this company immediately because every day that they're not selling themselves on Amazon, their brand's slowly getting killed because people are disrespecting minimum advertised pricing, and to there's just sales going out the door that these companies aren't adding value to their brand, but they're getting the major chunk of the profit. Something's wrong here.
We've got two more questions. Again, we're talking with Will Tjernlund, who is a massive Amazon seller. He's also used to sell on eBay, but he hates the platform, but suggests you head over there anyway. Well, two questions about advice. The first is, you're a mid-sized company. You, for some reason at this stage, aren't on Amazon. You're only selling on your website. What advice would you give them to increase their profit and to say, hey, guys, it's time to get to Amazon?
Just the main thing they need to do is just control their supply chain and who they're selling to. One of the biggest things I see is some of these companies get excited in the beginning, let anyone become like a reseller of their product and a vendor, and then they try to go on Amazon later on, and they're competing with one of their wholesalers in a price war, and they don't know who it is because they have it under a different name and everything. And so they're going, well, what the heck? What do we do? And so like, just know who you're selling to, and like think of what value are they actually adding to your company. Are they driving new eyeballs? Are they keeping your product on the shelf? Are they explaining your product to the customer and educating customers? Because if all they're doing is just being another seller on one of the marketplaces out there, like Sears, Rakuten, Walmart, Jet, whatever, then they're not actually adding value, and that's something you can do.
And then the advice for, I want to get into Amazon selling. I've got a reasonable budget. Let's say I've got, and my goal is, let's say, not to be a millionaire my first year, but I want to make some money, and I've got $10,000. What should I do as a seller to turn 10,000 into, say, 50,000?
It really depends on how much time you have in your hands, because there's two routes you can take. If you have a family and stuff, you can take the private label route, because the private label route, there's a lot of hurry up and wait, where you're going to have to sit there and crank out a couple hours of emails and research, and then you wait a whole day for it to come back, and then you crank out another couple hours. And so like, if you have a family and you just have like an hour and a half each night or something like that, the private label route actually makes a ton of sense, because like, you can go at a slower pace. You don't need to make $1 million overnight. And like, you're not going to sit there and be working 40-hour weeks doing your private label thing. There's going to be a lot of waiting around in the beginning for sure. But if you're willing to get going, you just got laid off, you want to make money today, I would start calling up these brands immediately. Look at companies with basically underrepresented Amazon accounts. Find their contact us page on their website. There's usually like a become a distributor tab. Contact them and try to get one of them on your radar, because if you can get product in within a week and you only have to buy a week's worth of inventory, say they do $40,000 a month in sales between all of their different SKUs on Amazon. Well, you buy $10,000 worth, the best $10,000 worth, it gets to your house in a week, you flip it around to Amazon, it sells out in 2 weeks. Now that $10,000 is $13,000 only 2 weeks later. There's not many other business models where you can flip cash that quickly. And that kind of guaranteed.
And well, how do you, so there's 20, 30, 40, 50,000, hundreds of thousands of companies on Amazon. How do you identify those underperformers? I mean, you're not going through listing by listing.
No, but kind of honestly I am. It's that I'm just live on Amazon.com. And so I'm constantly shopping on there. I'm constantly working on there. I'm constantly clicking, also bought with, and like also seen with, and all those kind of things. And so I'm constantly getting lost in Amazon, and I'm constantly kind of just finding weird examples. An example people can look up right now on Amazon.com is the training mask. It's a mask you can wear to restrict your breathing for when you're like working out to simulate elevation. Mm-hmm. It does like the medium size has like 114 people competing for the buy box. The first 2 bullet points don't even have anything on them. It only has 1 picture, and it does like $115,000 a month in sales. Oof. So it's like, that's like a prime example of like, the product does over $1 million a year in revenue, and the first 2 bullet points aren't filled out. So it's like, it's a period. The next one says imported. And so it's like, call up Training Master, but they have like 6 people on staff. They only make 2 SKUs. It's not like it's this big company, and say, hey, your Amazon account's atrocious. Let me take care of it.
Well, if you end up finding yourself in an Amazon black hole and you bump into somebody, there's a chance it's Will Tjernlund. He's also rolling down the Amazon black hole for that day, but he's looking at the companies slightly differently than you are, and if you're lucky, you'll have the same success that Will has had. Will, I want to wish you congratulations on all of your success, continued tremendous amounts of success. What you're doing is quite impressive, and I think that a lot of sellers and Amazon hopefuls would love to be sitting in your shoes one day. So hopefully that continues for you and your brother and you and your partner. And we appreciate all the time you gave us today, and I know that it was very valuable for our listeners.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me. And if anybody has any questions, reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find.
I appreciate it. And we'll put your email in the quotes below. Make sure, or in the comments below, make sure to subscribe to this, and you'll get more information from Will and other Amazon sellers here at the Fanatics e-commerce TV show. And Will, we'll hope to talk to you again in the next year and get an update with how the holiday season 2016 went for you.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
I appreciate it. Bye.